Deadlines, opportunities, fans and editors and publishers waiting. How is it amongst all that we do that the pressure plays a role on ourselves? Where does handling it become managing it to becoming productive? When does it become unhealthy, and can we recognize that? What tools or tricks do we know to help with all that? We will discuss this and more. Then C.L. Cannon will be along with indie books you might enjoy if you're a fan of Milk and Honey by Ruby Kaur. Finally, in the epilogue, choices will be made and feasts will be had. So come join us for another productive session on another This Week in Indies with your host, Joe Compton. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to This Week in Indies. I apologize for my voice yet again. If you saw me on Friday, it was much worse for Friday, I think, than it was today. But I am on the mend, but it just hit me this weekend. So I've got a little froggy voice, a little, just a little growl in there. So I apologize for that. But that's okay because, this is the great thing about this show is that I have wonderful, wonderful human beings.
Oh no!
You muted yourself. I guess I'm taking over. Damn.
I was trying to be fancy there and make the transition smooth, and it did not work at all. Live feeds, everybody. Anyway, like I was saying, I have those wonderful human beings below me here, and they're not below me, but I'm just gonna fucking stop talking. All right, everybody. Introduce yourselves. Vanessa, start us off, please.
Okay, hey everybody. I am Vanessa Junta. I am the author of the Urban Fantasy Soul Cavern series. I'm also a professional editor, and I hit the con circuit in the Southeast pretty hard. So that's me.
Nice. Ben?
Hello, I'm Ben. You can find me everywhere as author Ben Meeks. I'm a urban fantasy author of the Keeper Chronicles about a were-otter hunting demons in North Georgia, and my new sci-fi lit RPG series, Paxor 7. Yeah.
Awesome. Courtney?
You can find me on zealcan.net. I write mostly fantasy and sci-fi, especially YA fantasy and sci-fi. And I do a lot of things here on Go Indie Now, like the Indie Connection and the monthly marketing tip. And I also help authors with my company, Fiction Atlas Press.
Awesome. Deborah?
Hi, I'm author Deborah Parmley, and I'm a multi-genre author. My newest books, I'm most known for writing military romantic suspense, but my newest books, I have one that's urban fantasy romance, and I have an anthology of poetry, a collection of poetry that just came out. So multi-genre, for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, welcome all. Thank you for joining me. This is a really great topic to discuss. I think amongst us, it's interesting to me because the fascinating thing about this is if from the layman's outside point of view here, people would go, I mean, you're an artist, you get to do art and you're independent. So you can set your own deadlines. You can do your own thing. Well, how in the world would you ever feel pressure? Mm-hmm. Well, it happens and we all do it. It's human nature. It's natural. So what are some of the things that you recognize in yourselves when you're feeling pressure? What is it about pressure that you feel when you feel it? Do you know it? Do you see it? Is there something that triggers you or gets you going to think, okay, I'm putting too much pressure on myself?
When I wake up with a feeling of dread, that is when I know that I'm feeling too pressured. Like when I literally am laying in my bed and I have that kind of ball of gunk that's like feels like it's sitting in my belly and I'm just like, I dread getting up. That tells me that it's almost always because I'm avoiding something specific that I need to do that I haven't done, that I don't want to do, but I have to do anyway, and I just keep avoiding it. So, and usually that's what ends up making everything else pile on, because I'm doing all my avoidance tricks, and instead of instead of being smart and just avoiding that thing, I end up avoiding everything, so everything kind of piles up behind the thing I don't want to do, and it's that feeling of dread in my belly when I wake up that tells me that I need to get my shit together.
For me, it's
Yeah.
a physical thing. It's like when you've stayed up too late, like 2, 3 a.m., and you're trying to meet deadlines, and oh gosh, or you're falling asleep at the keyboard. There's so many bad practices I've done since I've been at this a minute. My first book came out in 2008, so, and it was traditional. So deadlines were imposed upon me instead of me creating them. And then because I'm a Gemini and won't write just one thing in the box, I won't do that. What I'll do is, okay, I'm contracted here. I'll do this for you, and I'm doing this over here, but you don't know about it. And that's how I ended up with 5 small presses, juggling multiple deadlines. And now I'm up till 2, 3 a.m. And when it gets to the point where you cannot meet a deadline and it's got to be rescheduled, you know you're overcommitted, because the body can only physically do so much, and we need sleep. So you start making mistakes, missing deadlines, starting to feel crappy. It's going to affect your health. I suggest don't write for 5 publishers. I will never do it again.
For me, it's when my to-do list, which I can't get on screen, is more than this one page because for the week, and I keep adding things to it, and I just feel like I'm going to drown in all the tasks that I have to do.
I was going to say for you, Courtney, that looks light.
This is only one page. I've got another page.
Yeah. Joe, you mentioned, don't answer to anybody. That makes it so much worse for me. It's easy to show up and do the things you need to do when you have somebody standing over your shoulder telling you what that is. And yeah, it's so much harder for me to push myself and sit down when I'm supposed to be writing and not go do that fun thing that's gonna, it's only gonna take 5 minutes, but then it ends up, sidetracking me down this whole road, and then it's the late afternoon and I haven't got any writing done, and then I'm trying to catch up. Yeah. I was if having someone standing over my shoulder would be probably the biggest improvement I could make to being an independent author.
Sean says hello, everybody. Hello, Sean. Yeah, it's that's an interesting dichotomy there, Ben, because I agree with you. There is something about it, and oftentimes our perception of the pressure is different than the people waiting for you to do something for them, right? And so it's like, I spend more times writing DMs and emails apologizing for being late on something or doing something, and
Right.
the response is, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. Get it to me when you can get it to me." As like people are really great actually about you. It's really you're putting that on yourselves a lot of the times, right? And so, what are some things you do to try and? Courtney, you probably just showed us something you do, which is a to-do list, which is a smart way to. But what are some of the things you do to combat it? To prepare for pressure coming? Is there certain things you do like a to-do list? Is there certain things you kind of just do to kind of make sure that you don't feel the pressure?
Sometimes I will take a break because the pressure is too much. And so taking a break and taking the mental, at least not even if it doesn't have to be a whole day, but taking like an hour or two to do something that's fun. It's just like The Sims. If you're playing The Sims and you make them work all the time, then they don't want to do anything. They want to cry and go to bed. And that's the way we are in real life. So, you have to let them go play a video game or watch something or go spend time with your family or do something that fills your cup back up so that you have the energy to do the things that you need to do.
Yeah. So I also do like wood turning, many of you probably know I make pins and things like that. And for me, it's actually been really helpful for my writing because I will sit at the computer and write, and I get a couple, 2 or 3 hours in, and it's like I get antsy, especially, oh yeah, and I get
It's one of
antsy
Ben's
that,
pens.
um, especially if I'm in the editing process and not the creative process, because I'm very creative and I feel like I'm not creating. And to do that for the entire editing process, like I need to create. So I'll get up and go to the lathe for an hour and just be creative, make something fun, and then I can come back and continue editing or whatever it is I'm working on, and it has alleviated the pressure that I feel to, you know, move around or be
Yeah.
creative.
And I think for me, one of the things that I really had to learn was how to say no. How to I've had to learn, people who know me know that I've gone through some serious uh, tragedy. I've had my house demolished twice in the last 4 years. Um, and so there's been a lot of stress from that that affects my motivation and stuff. And in part because of those things that happened. The second time was, even though it was a worse thing than the first time, it wasn't as bad on me as the first time because I had learned a lot in the first time. Right. So one of the things I learned is to really, and I'm not an expert at this, so please don't take it like I'm, all up in myself. But to look at what I have on my plate, and I have a more realistic idea of what I can actually do. Whereas prior to that, when I didn't have the stress of rebuilding my house and stuff like that, it was like, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. And then, ultimately, as everybody here, I think, has had experience with, I get to a point where I realize I'm completely overwhelmed. There's no way that I can do all these things that I've committed to. And then I have to go through the internal stress of, all right, well, what do I drop? How do I tell them? And and that is even more stress than I would have been in right, Sean, than I would have been in had I just said, look, I don't have room for that right now. So I'm still not great at it, but I'm getting better at figuring out what I can actually handle versus what I want to handle. So,
So, deadlines, because before I had books out or short stories in print, I worked for newspapers and I worked in advertising. And there is a point on a deadline beyond which you cannot go. In traditional publishing, that's called the drop dead deadline. In other words, you've been given a deadline, but now you can't meet it. And although my father passed after I was in traditional publishing, I knew about the drop dead deadlines. And so everything had to be readjusted when these major things happen in your life. You got to do that. But it depends on each situation. So, for instance, I freelance for a magazine, I do cover model interviews. I have a deadline. Then I have a drop dead deadline, beyond which point that won't go in the magazine because it's too late. You've got more freedom as an indie. But what's interesting that I have kind of learned the hard way is that I can set deadlines and yes, I can readjust them. But there's no less pressure with that deadline than there was or still is because I still freelance for the magazine. No less pressure when I set it than when someone else does, which I find kind of interesting. But I had that all flipped on its ear last summer because I had a stroke and I was in the hospital for 18 days. And that's a situation you can't predict, you can't plan for, you can only come back from and do the best you can. So I would say this, if you have anything major going in your life, whether it's your own health, someone else's, death in the family, give yourself some grace and step back and let yourself heal, whether it's physically or emotionally or whatever, because the world won't end if you miss a deadline. It might feel like it, but you can come back healthier and able to write more, which is where I'm at right now. I mean, behind on a lot of projects, but I'm not staying up till 4 or 5 a.m. or pulling all-nighters to get books done. For one thing, I need sleep because I had a stroke in my brain and there's a blood clot still in there. And your brain doesn't heal if you don't get enough sleep. So it's been forced upon me. And I would say this, put yourself into the situation where you're getting enough sleep before your health does that for you. That's important to do healthy practices as authors. The books are important, but your health is more important than that book.
Agreed.
What about for you, Courtney?
Sorry, what's the question again?
How do you prepare for pressure? How do you
Yeah,
prepare?
for pressure. Okay. Other than the lists, I've been doing more like Vanessa, and I've been trying to tell people no more often, but I'm also learning how to schedule better because, like Vanessa, anytime I got something, I was like, yeah, I can do it. I can do it this week. I can do it this weekend. Instead of setting realistic timelines for when I could actually do it. So instead of saying, I can do something immediately, I say, okay, let me see where I'm at, what I've got on my schedule, and I can see where I can get you in. And if I can't get you in within the time frame that you need, I probably know somebody that I can send you to. Because I just like Deborah, you can't put too much on yourself. Your health starts to decline, especially if you're someone who already has chronic health problems. It just compounds on you, and your mental health and your physical health is worth sticking around and being more healthy than chasing I don't know, that good feeling of helping someone else. It's always good to help someone else, but it's also good to prioritize yourself when you need to.
Yeah, you put your mask on first before you help somebody else with theirs,
Yes.
right? So,
Yes.
um, something that happens to me, and it's happened just recently, is I'll get excited about an opportunity, right? Somebody will present an opportunity to me. I'll get excited about it, and I'll have an initial idea for it. This is when I feel the most pressure myself, is when I have an initial idea for it, and I realize that it's just a nugget of an idea, and then I sit down to write it or I sit down to create it, and I'm just staring at the thing, and I'll start writing something, and then I'll go, oh, that's shit. No, that's not how I want to do that. No, and then and then the throbbing starts, and then I realize, and then I look at the deadline again and go, I've got to do this because I've got this deadline. The submission deadline is this date, and then and then I'll talk to myself and go, okay, but I still have a couple days, so let's take one day and let it marinate, and then one day becomes 3 days, and I realize that I got 36 hours now to create this thing, right? And I work really good under pressure. I've always have, but there's under pressure, and then there is just forcing yourself into pressure. I feel like, and so I like what you said, Vanessa, that you just got to learn to say no sometimes. And what the problem is that when I commit to something, or when I see something and I say, hey, I'm going to try to do this, people get excited about that, because they want me to be involved in it. But and so then I start to feel that real pressure. Go, oh shit! Now I really got to do it,
Yeah.
right? And it's like,
Yeah. You've got to really recognize your own constraints. Like I did something similar. There was someone he was putting together an anthology, and when I say it was like directly up my alley, it was like directly up my alley. And I was super excited, and I even put in a proposal and everything like that. And he had asked me some questions in an email about about the storyline of the proposal or whatever. And I just dropped the ball, and a part of me was just like, I mean, I really wanted to do it, but that was also when I was still displaced and we were making arrangements to come back into the house, and so, we were getting cleaning stuff done and all this crazy stuff, and I just couldn't. And that's a regret of mine, because like, not that I feel like I was like I did anything bad, but that, like, I mean, because I was never officially signed on or anything like that. So it's not like I reneged on my obligations or anything like that. But like, I didn't form those obligations. But I'm so disappointed at that, because like just the timing of it. If it had happened like 6 months later, I would have been or even 6 months earlier, I probably would have been in a better place to do it. But I had to just let it go. And like I said, I was really disappointed because, like, if you had created an anthology for me, it would have been that. So I was really disappointed just
Missed
in the circumstances.
opportunities. That's what falls under missed opportunities. And that
Yeah.
can be hard on us because we look at it and we have that what if, because this could have been such a glorious thing and perfect.
hmm
And I'll tell you, so I guess I'll go ahead and share this. So it wasn't just the 18 days in the hospital. I couldn't read a line of text when I came home, first because I had vertigo. Any straight line was going up and down. So reading, I couldn't read, I couldn't write. I was listening to audiobooks to get my book stories to listen to. That was the best I could do. And that lasted for a month. And so things had come up, promotional opportunities and other opportunities. And I was really kicking myself for a while there until I finally realized that I was kicking myself when I shouldn't have, and stepped back and said, okay, well, that just wasn't meant to be for me. That was not meant to be in my path as a writer. And that's okay, because something else down the road will be the perfect opportunity for me. I think we can be really hard on ourselves, especially if we see other authors having opportunities that we, for whatever reason, couldn't. But that's okay, because we've all on different paths, and we can be so hard on ourselves,
So much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a thought. Um, One thing, I guess this is anxiety, but whenever I've gotten in the position where there's something coming up in the future and I start thinking about it, I get anxious about it. How is this going to turn out? How am I going to work this situation out? Um, I've learned to ask myself, is this a problem now, or is this like something I'm just going to have to deal with in the future, and I'm making more trouble for myself by thinking about it now, right? Like, is it a future bin problem? And
Yes.
99% of the time, it's a future bin problem that I'm worrying about for no reason because I can't do
hmm
anything about it. So I've kind of learned to put those things into the future. And then the funny thing is, when I get to the point where I probably should be worried about it at that point, I'm not worried about it anymore. So I saved myself a lot of worry and anxiety by just learning to
You
focus on what I need
compartmentalize.
to focus on. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's not borrowing trouble. Like that's what it's like you're not
right.
borrowing anxiety from the future to embrace today. I think that's real smart.
There's a new thing I'm doing because I've been thinking about these subjects a lot, and I'm trying to make room in my life for opportunities and also try to prevent this deadline pressure. So I know the industry is set up to where you put your release date out there, which is a promise to your readers. And I have to say, failing on that disturbs me greatly,
Mm.
but sometimes you can't help it. And when it happens to a lot of books, it's like, oh man. I mean, readers are great. They've forgiven me, but now I need to get my butt in gear and finish. Well, I wouldn't say I'm paranoid about setting a date, but I'm very cautious now. I'm putting my deadlines way out there with the thought
Mhm.
that, okay, there's room and I can pull that date back in and then make the reader
Yeah.
happy instead of saying, oh, this is the day I'll have it. Oh, now something has happened. Now we're back in that same old, well, shoot, they're disappointed and I'm frustrated, and that's not a good cycle at all. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to give more room into the schedule. And what's interesting about that is if my planner is not jam-packed full of stuff, now I've got space for opportunities when they do pop up to go, oh yeah, hey, I could squeeze that in here. I just have to
Yeah.
prevent it from getting over full.
Mm.
Yeah.
I actually quit giving dates You know, it's a
I
nice
do too.
idea for me, but like, oh, I'm gonna have this book done, in June. That's like 3 months out, no problem. And then June comes and it's not ready. And there's no reason for it not to be ready. I just didn't finish it, is what it comes down to. But how do you say that to people? So I quit up until I okay, this is going to be ready in like 2 weeks. Then I give myself a
Mhm.
month and I'll actually say something. But I quit. If it's months out, I quit even trying to give dates because it never works out for me.
Sean
Yeah,
says,
I had.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
The problem with working good under pressure is that it becomes a bad habit.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
I had a similar thing to Ben. Like, so the last time I actually put out like a pre-order, and it wasn't done was in 2020, right before the pandemic. I had set something like April or May or June or something as my final book of my series. Or no, that's not right. I'd set it for like August. I'm sorry, I'm getting my house demolished stories timelines mixed up. The first tree fell in July of 2020, and I'd set my release date at something like August or September. No, I think September, October. And I ended up like I couldn't finish it. I couldn't finish it. I still haven't finished it. I'm working on it again now. But like you've gotta, when stuff like that happens, I also find that I end up being my own worst enemy if I have that kind of a deadline because I end up putting so much pressure on myself that I go into my procrastination spiral. And because that's the thing I do. If I'm feeling super, super pressured, I hermit.
Mm.
And that's not good for getting stuff done. I have found.
And then if you have that deadline and you're pushing to meet it and you're hurrying on your story, because now you're hurrying on your story, is
Mhm.
that story going to be as good as it could have been if you weren't hurrying on it?
Not only from your perspective, but then you're pushing the publisher to hurry and the
Mhm.
editor to hurry. And
Mhm.
would it have been as good for them
Yeah.
if they
Mhm.
didn't have to rush through it because they set deadlines for themselves as well, right? So I found that happened with my second book is I made the deadline like a day before I was scheduled to, but day before, really it's kind of it's that old adage, right? If you're on time, you're late, and if you're 15 minutes early,
It's early, you're on time.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's that old adage, right? So uh I mean, if I had just done it right and given them a week more, I think the book would have been beneficial, would have, you know, um, benefited from that aspect of it too. Um, and it's, yeah, the the other thing and that brings me to my next question, which is, there's pressure we put on ourselves, right? And then there's things out of our control once we put the pressure on ourselves that derail everything that we put ourselves through to get something done. Is it Does that has that happened to any of you? And for me, that puts it in perspective a little bit too, right? Because look, I put all this pressure on myself. I got it done when I was supposed to get it done, but hey, my publisher folded. What am I going to do? Right? It just happens. These things happen, right? And you feel like I put all of this stuff on top of me to get this done, and here it is, just laying in the weeds again, right? And it's like, could I have handled that better? I look at that perspective because I do that, I internalize that aspect of it. Do you guys feel that sometimes? I mean, has something out of your control? Obviously, Vanessa's gonna a tree fell. Yes, yeah,
Twice.
twice.
Well, when
Yeah,
I was with the traditional small presses, I was working with an editor. We had an anthology coming out. All of us were working on these stories. The editor and I, we have my stories done. We're ready. It's ready. It's poised. It's almost time. It's going to come out. Then the publisher folded.
yeah.
Now, the editor had no clue this was coming. I had no clue this was coming. It was a military romantic suspense fundraiser for veterans So that was like a double ouch, and it just floored me. I mean, I probably lost a whole week to that, just walking around with a, oh my gosh, kind of a thing, because we'd all worked so hard to put this good anthology together, which would have done good things, and now suddenly gone, just gone. No warning at all. And you can't control that. You just can't. I think you just do the best you can, and just, hopefully that won't happen. You've got a little more control if you're an indie, though, because unless you decide to shut down your own publishing company, that's probably not going to happen. But that doesn't mean, God
It doesn't
forbid,
mean a
any of
tree's
you
not
ever
going to
get a
fall on your
stroke or
house.
something. I mean, you can have a stroke at any age. And I'm like, well, that could happen to anybody. It's just, things just happen. I don't know how else to say it. They just happen. You're not always prepared. And it's hard to come back when that happens because, I mean, I was in good health when the publisher folded, and I lost a whole week to that because I was so upset, Well, we were all upset. Well, you have to worry about getting rights back and all that jazz at that point too. But I didn't get any writing done that week, But things happen, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in ICU like I was looking back, because you do the life review when that kind of a thing happens. You don't want to be laying in ICU, hooked up with all this stuff going, wow, I could have maybe done this stuff a little differently, maybe a little kinder to myself, and if I hadn't come back from that, what would have mattered? That was the big question that I kind of reviewed everything I've done in my author career, well, in my whole life. And so I think going forward, my questions are going to be, what do I want to leave behind? What projects are not finished that I want to finish? And how do I want to live my life? Because it's the whole package. It's not just the book. Yeah.
So just say, for me, outside pressures like unexpected things happening, really doesn't get to me that much. I've it seems like I've always had a certain amount of uncertainty in my life, so a little bit more, no big deal. But I also hold myself to a high standard that I often fall short of, and that is where things get me, you know. Uh, so if anybody has any tips to help me out with that, let me know.
Well, I used to have that issue as well until my house got demolished twice in 3
Right.
years. But only because that forced me, because there was so much outside of myself stuff to deal with. Plus there was like grief. Y'all, I lost my entire Stephen King hardback collection that I had been collecting my entire life. Let me tell you, that was the most emotional thing about it. Never mind that there was a tree in my dining room. I lost all my Stephen King books. I was very, so like there's not just like the physical of how much time you can devote to this or this or this. You have to clean out the house, you have to, deal with the insurance, you have to do this. There's not even just that. There's also the emotional component. You're grieving, you're in shock, you're traumatized, and all of those things can also get in the way of your creativity. I mean, they absolutely do. And so I think that it really made me have to sit down and, like Deborah was saying, look at, okay, what's important, what do I like, prioritizing things, and recognizing that if I'm setting these goals for myself, because like everybody was giving me all kinds of grace, like everybody was like, girl, your house got smashed, it's okay if you can't make this deadline, it's okay. And that's great, right? And I gave myself a little bit of that grace also. But then at a certain point, is it now habit or is it actual trauma? And so like I had to figure that out for myself. But what I did learn is that when I'm setting these goals that I know I can't reach, I know from past experience that that's more than I can do. I have to ask myself why I'm setting myself up to fail. Because if I'm creating goals for myself that are unattainable in the time frame I'm giving myself, I mean, they may not be unattainable with an extra month or whatever, but if they are unattainable in the time frame I'm giving myself, that made me have to look at myself and say, okay, why are you setting goals for yourself that you know you can't make?
Hmm.
Or why are you setting goals where you haven't actually thought about whether you can make that goal? You just set this date. Like, is that reasonable? Is it, and if I am setting these goals that I know I'm not going to make, or setting these standards that I know I can't reach, why am I setting future Vanessa up to fail? Like, why am I doing that?
Right.
And so that becomes a whole other psychological thing that I've got to delve into. And it's all very messy, y'all. It's all very messy.
It's all interconnected, though.
Yes,
I don't think we
absolutely.
realize how interconnected it is until something happens. I mean,
Mhm.
and it's okay to have the small incremental goals, which is how you get to the bigger goals. Anyway, I mean, basically, no matter what our goal is, one sentence at a time is how we get there. So if you can only manage one sentence in a day, you're still further ahead than you were yesterday. And it's okay to say that, and it doesn't have to be, you know, the sprinting with how many words can you get done in an hour. That's great if you can do it. But if you can't do it, hey, did you write today? Yes? Then good. Just simple logic. Yes, then good. No, then well, try again tomorrow. Just a kinder way of being
Mhm.
for yourself.
I find this so much during November. Uh, the folks who do NaNoWriMo, and
Yeah.
they're so committed. They're so like aggressive about, I've got to do this. I got to do this word count. I got to get this badge. I got to win, right? And it's the only time, like, I see a lot of non-competitive people, or people I would have assumed were non-competitive, become very competitive at that moment. And
Yeah.
it's like, but you wrote something, right? And I keep telling them, you
Mhm.
wrote some,
Yeah.
the tunnel vision's not there. It's just they're so focused on winning and competitive. It is the weirdest thing to watch a person that I never thought would be that way, when I'm just saying to them, you wrote something. I want to give them a big,
Yeah.
the hardest part about being virtual is I can't give you a hug. I want to just hug you and tell you it's okay. You wrote something. The point of Nano, and the Nano people will tell you this, is not winning. That's
Right.
a luxury. That's a cherry on top of the sundae. It's writing. The whole idea is to get you into a healthy habit of writing, or doing something writing.
Mhm.
And if you write 10 words a day, you've written 10 words in a day. That's amazing. Because there's going to be months when you don't write a single fucking word, and you're killing yourself because of that, right? And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
Yes.
so, right. I mean,
I do Nano, like I start Nano, even if I know that there's no way I have time to actually complete 50,000 words. I'll still do it, even though I know I'm not going to win, because I ride the wave. There are all these people who are pushing forward doing it, and I ride with them. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
even if, and me, I'm of the mind, if you got 10 words today, like Deborah was saying, if you got one sentence, that's awesome. It's more than you had yesterday,
yeah.
and so that's how I view it. Even when I know I can't win Nano, I play anyway, because I know I'll end up with more words than I had in September. Oh, in October. Or September, maybe. Who knows?
Whatever day.
Whatever.
Whatever year, whatever day. Um, look, this is
Can I?
good.
Can I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I wanted to see if I could. I'm sorry, Courtney. I wanted to know, like, you have. I feel like you're kind of the epitome of somebody who's got all their stuff together, and I know that that is just me on the outside. I know that. I know
Use
that.
the
But like,
facade.
I know. I recognize that, because people have that opinion of me too, and I'm like, oh, you guys you have not seen the mess. But like, you were talking about how you utilize lists. Like, do you have a way that you tackle things, like on a daily or weekly basis or whatever? And I'm looking to hear this from everybody, if that's okay, Joe. I'm sorry, I just
That's okay.
completely stepped into your role.
Totally fine.
Let me find my I've got all kinds
Like
of these
how you
little
prioritize.
tabs. So I don't know if you can I can never get over it. I love Otter, so it says things I ought to do. But it says today's top priorities. So I try to get the things that are immediate, that are at the point that if I don't do them today, someone's going to yell at me or somebody's going to be disappointed. I put there things that, and then I go by priority down to things that have to be done, like Indie Connections somewhere around here. Sadly, like every week, it's about right here. But I always get it done before it's time to go. But these are things that I must do this week. And then in the notes, I'll do things that are emergent, things that have to be done soon, things that I should start worrying about that I'm probably already worrying about, but don't have some that nobody's on to me for, I guess, yet. It's all chaos. And sometimes the list gets checked off like one here. I can't do it. One here. So it's not always linear, but I try to have something visual to prioritize what really needs to get done this week.
Love that.
I do to-do list as well. I do a to-do list. I have it on my phone. I have it on my Keep notes. I do a to-do list.
I have something similar.
So
See, but I also have like calls and stuff that I need to do.
Good.
And so I have like stuff I need to do, I really should do, and if I have time, I never get to this part. So, yeah, and then I prioritize like top 3 in the day and then what the focus is, like whether it's writing or whatever. But like that's, and so like I'm so glad, like comfort, like validation there. And I see Deborah has something too that she's going to show.
This is my
Holy
planner.
crap.
This is my planner. This is craziness. Okay, this is just do not do this. It's even hard to read. You know, it's just it have everything in there from the writing to, because it's a planner, to the doctor stuff, to the exercise and other things that I'm incorporating in. They're important, but the planner, it's just mind-boggling to look at it. I've had friends look at this and go, holy cow, what are you doing? I'm like, well, no, this keeps me on track. Now, sometimes I cross things off and don't get to them, but those are the possibilities for the day.
I find that if I don't do my planning, I am not nearly as effective in getting stuff done.
Because
I just try to
off is an adrenaline rush, right? It's you cross it off and hey, it's done.
Yeah.
Success breeds motivation.
Deborah's planner is the kind of planner. It looks like the kind of grid you need a schematic for. Oh my gosh,
it's a little crazy, yeah.
A whole flow chart.
But keep in mind, it's got things on there like a 30-minute swim, which I need for my health. Yeah. So it's not all writing. It's not all work. If I'm going out to dinner or whatever. I mean, I have this scheduled like breakfast, lunch, dinner is in there along with the things. So, or even make a phone call. I have to call this one or that one. So. But yeah,
I have alarms. I have alarms on my phone, and it's when I wake up, because I'm you wake up and you're in this haze, right? And the first thing that I do before, because like my instinct is to get up and check my email, right, or to check Facebook or do that, right? But my alarm is helped me by setting an alarm. It tells me, okay, 5 minutes of deep breathing, 10 minutes of meditation. And then those first two things, those are the first 2 things I do. Then make my bed is the third thing. And then, and then you get into that routine, and I don't need the alarms anymore because I'm in that routine now.
It's a habit.
But it forms that habit. It helped me realize. And now, I realized, quite frankly, that emails can wait. Facebook can wait. Everything can wait,
It's going to be there when you come back.
Yeah,
unfortunately, yes.
I know, exactly.
My morning routine is when I wake up, I go through my list of 5 things I'm thankful for every day. I do
nice.
Which, if you get in the practice of doing that, then when you're in the ICU, you're still doing that, which is a really good set for the day. And then when I'm up, I have my weakness is dark chocolate hot cocoa. I start my day with that, and then I sit down, I'm drinking that, then I'm looking at the planner and I'm prioritizing, and I'm sometimes juggling, okay, this will happen, but maybe not that. And then I just get going on it, and it can get adjusted throughout the day. So
I don't
Nothing
know.
is set in stone.
I don't play a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I only play one on Go Indie now. And I read an article, Deborah, that I think is fascinating for you. I don't know. I'll see if I can find it. But I read an article about how if you exude gratitude, right? You say something you're thankful for, grateful for every single day. It actually helps the blood flow in your brain. There's a medical.
I have
Yeah, nice.
I have that on my planner. Today I'm grateful for. And then at the end of the day, today I was awesome at. So that you recognize when you do something good. I'm
That's
sorry.
awesome.
I was just
No,
holding
no,
up
that's
as an
fantastic. That's
illustration.
exactly what I was talking about. Because that's, I mean, and it is. They've done a medical study. They did an actual study where they had people get up in the morning and measure. Say something grateful to say. Go to the mirror and say something grateful to the mirror, right? And or write it down somewhere, right? And they found that they they did a wave in your brain, or what they did a CAT scan or whatever they do, and they found that your blood flow through your brain through your neck, it's so much smoother.
Hmm.
It
It's that
releases these endorphins that they didn't ever know existed.
that
So
explains why it felt better. In fact, I can say this while in ICU, you'd think it would be harder to come up with the thing. It was not harder. So I'd start out with, I woke up and I'd say, I'm alive again today.
Grateful I woke
Hey,
up.
that's number one. So, and then
I
Right.
I can
woke
wiggle
up.
my
Yes.
toes. Hey, I've got toes. And it was really quick and easy to go through the 5.
yeah,
And when I got done with that, I felt better physically and mentally. So this makes a lot of sense, Joe. That would be the
yeah,
scientific reason why.
yeah.
Yeah.
Something I'm very grateful for each and every week is the Indie Connection, done by the wonderful CL Cannon, every week, and we're really grateful to have the opportunity to present it for you. And this is a really cool one that you did this week, Courtney. It's Milk and Honey, and it's a very interesting collection. If you haven't checked it out, but these are some indie books that you might enjoy if you are a fan of that particular book.
Hey guys, CL Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. This time I've got one for all of you poetry lovers. We're going to be doing indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of Milk and Honey by Ruby Carr. The first book I have for you is called My Father's Eyes, My Mother's Rage by Rose Brick. My Father's Eyes, My Mother's Rage is the raw and emotionally charged debut poetry collection by Rose Brick. Rose delves into the intricate layers of the human experience with profound insight. Through her poetry, she fearlessly navigates themes of the mother and father wound, childhood trauma, domestic violence, grief, mental health struggles, love, motherhood, and ultimately the process of healing. Her words possess the power to unearth buried emotions and memories, evoking a deep sense of empathy and reflection in her readers. I have my mother's rage and my father's ability to walk away. This, I've learned, is a very lonely combination. The second book we have is called Recollection, First Wave by our very own J.D. Estrada. Poetry is a curious thing. Quite often people define it as being extremely limiting, as if poetry were a single thing. As a writer, I've been recognized for my craft, though as a human, it has saved me more than you could imagine. I've been able to make sense of life through verses, as well as take control of emotions by using them to create something new. Although I'm often making a case for poetry and how powerful it can be, this is the first time I included all my published poetry in a single collection. This book includes Between the Tides, Dark Strands, Captured Moments, Black Tie Affair, and Roulette of Rhymes. In addition, I'm including poems that appear in my bilingual collection, Twenty Vente, as well as bonus poems available in my middle grade short story collection, Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore. The mission of this collection is simple: to show you that poetry can be a whole bunch of things, and not just your typical roses or red shtick, and to hopefully inspire you to pick up a pen, pencil, or word processor and see what new ways you can find to express what you feel and how you feel it. All that is left now is to release the words. The third book I have for you is called Healing is a Gift, Poems for Those Who Need to Grow by Alexandra Vasuli. Healing is a Gift is a powerful poetry collection that explores the profound themes of love, heartbreak, loss, trauma, healing, letting go, self-love, acceptance, personal transformation, growth, clarity, inner peace, and self-esteem. Each uplifting poem guides readers through their deep internal healing process and offers practical strategies for personal transformation and growth. By providing valuable insights into the personal growth process, this inspiring book encourages readers to reflect on a compelling message. You give the greatest gift to your precious self when you start mending your heart's wounds. Beautifully written, Healing is a Gift is a valuable resource for anyone seeking personal growth, self-improvement, and inner peace. The fourth book I have for you is called The Tears That Taught Me by Morgan Richard Oliver. With unapologetically honest reflections and revelations, Morgan Richard Oliver embraces the tears, trials, and triumphs one experiences when seeking development, direction, and detachment. The Tears That Taught Me poetry and prose collection guides readers as they dig through the roots of their struggles, truths, faith, and life lessons. Through pruning, positioning, and reframing, we are able to blossom as we make peace with our pain and accept the greater purpose of every experience and emotion endured. And the last book I have for you is called Save Me an Orange by Haley Grace. In her debut poetry collection, Haley gives voice to the roots of struggle and pain growing up, as well as the love and pursuit of self-acceptance that were fundamental in her own choice to live. Her verses weave a narrative that is both deeply personal and universally resonant through shadows of the past and the fleeting moments of joy captured in the simplicity of sharing an orange. Even when you think there's nothing left, life gives us oranges. So go share one with your best friend. Maybe they thought the world would end when they were 16 too. Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on The Indie Connection. Bye!
As always, another wonderful Indie Connection that we're so privileged to have each and every week. Thank you, Courtney, for that. And it's awesome. You haven't done poetry in a while, so that's pretty cool. That's a good one. Everybody go check out those books. Recollection is obviously, I'm biased because I have an affinity for Mr. J.D. Estrada, but that book covers all of his books that he's done in the essay and poetry realm, and it's a real. If you wanted to get all of them, it's kind of like buying the omnibus of his work, and it's very, very good. And it's got two of my favorite books inside of it in there. So he has poetry books he's published after that too that are really great. But yeah, poetry is, I think, if you wanted to soothe your soul and you wanted to take some pressure off yourself, reading poetry is a good way to do that. It can really, one, make you apathetic, and two, make you feel like, hey, I'm not alone. It feels pretty nice, right? And somebody understands me, and poetry does that, I think, a lot. And I think that not enough people read poetry or dismiss it, and I think that's a mistake, honestly. But hey, look, we all make mistakes, so that's how it goes. I wanted to end our conversation on a good note, right? Because feeling pressure is hardly ever a good thing. I mean, sometimes it can bring in the best of us. Like I mentioned before, I'm really good at when I'm up against the wall, I'm really good at dealing with that. I've always been good at that. I can cite certain examples and tell you all kinds of stories about me personally that I can show you that I was good at that. But also, I know when I'm in my comfort zone and my sweet spot, and I would take that every day of the week. I would take all the pressure in the world to feel the hour or day or maybe even a week where I'm writing every day. Like one of the reasons I took on the last project I took on was I knew it was going to be a challenge for me. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to get back into writing, and I felt like a challenge would do that. And it really challenged me, as Vanessa knows, as probably all of you know, as I've shared countless times on Facebook about it. And but when I got in a groove, when I finally figured it out, right, when the puzzle pieces fit, all of a sudden it was the most rewarding. I was literally going from my work to Starbucks, the late night Starbucks that stayed open till 11, and I was writing till I was literally the last person in there. Oftentimes, they would turn off the lights to tell me, "Yeah, you got to go," you know,
Time
and
to go, Joe.
I never, and that's an experience that I wish I could do every single day. Obviously, I don't have the opportunity or the gumption to do it, and then everybody's going to say, "Well, why not?" Well, just life and things happen. But those moments, that like when I just put on my headphones, I like classical music when I'm writing. I don't know, it just stimulates me. So I'm listening to some jazzy classical music and I'm writing and I'm going. And I would not replace. I would I would let a finger fall off to have that moment, right? Talk talk about that. If Do you all feel that? Do you feel like all the pressure is worth it ultimately because you do get those moments? I know you all have had them. I know you
Yeah.
have. So
Being in the flow, there's nothing like it. There's absolutely, I mean, yeah, like you were saying, Joe, it's almost like it's a magic formula. If we knew how to get there every time, I would do it every time. Sometimes you just get into that and you can go for hours or
mhm.
just an hour or even just 30 minutes and it's just fantastic. But I don't know the magic formula for how to get there.
I know, right?
So if any of you find it, please let me know.
Right.
Give it to me. I want it. Yeah. How about from you, Courtney? I mean, you're about. Can I, if I may, can I share? I
Yeah.
won't share the details, but I'll share a conversation that you and I just recently had about what you're about to venture into, and you made a realization that it's time to do stuff for you, and which every person here would totally be behind you and agree with. So, are you finding those moments now? Is that something, or you're looking forward to those moments?
I'm looking forward to those moments. Right now, I've got to finish the workload that I'd already imposed upon myself. But this fall, I am going to be really hitting the ground running to try to get my novel completed, and being able to get into that zone and being able to have those moments, because I've done that before. I'm a lot like Joe. I work very well under pressure. I don't know if it's the ADHD, what it is, but at the end of the day, when the deadline is looming over me, that's when I write like 20,000 words, but like in a night or something. But it's hard for me to get into the habit because I'm always like, well, I have to do this for someone else. I've got this I've got to do. I've got to do this for the kids. I teach at a co-op. I homeschool the kids, and just the regular stuff that you have to do around the house, plus all the client stuff. And I don't prioritize myself enough. And I feel like I'm letting the readers who want my story down, and I'm letting myself down because I'm not being able to get that out, because the ideas are still there, but I have to sit down and let them get into the creative flow and let them come out. So I'm going to try to prioritize that this fall.
Yay.
And I do that a lot with like Joe, with music. But I usually go more, well, it's according on what I'm writing, but a lot of times I go with more like Nordic music, Skald and Aurora and things like that are kind of like soothing, old sort of sounding music. But I'm writing fantasy, so that kind of vibes with it. But yeah, I'm going to do that and try to find more quiet time for myself, especially now that the kids are getting older. It gets a little bit easier to be able to write without them having, like, Mom, I need this, So yeah, it's time.
Yay.
Yay,
That's
that's
awesome.
great.
Yes.
Ben, Vanessa?
So so that flow has evaded me for quite a long time. So when the first tree fell, it took about a year and a half until I started feeling like myself again in general. And that allowed me to be able to kind of focus, and I was able to hit the zone. And then, like, 3.5 weeks later, tornado came through and demolished my house again. So it's now been a year and a half since that. So in the last few weeks, I have just started really feeling myself again. And that's a big part of it for me, is that I was so engrossed in everything else. Like Courtney was saying, all these other things, right? It's very easy to say, oh, well, I need to work on this first, or I need to work on that first, and just move the writing to the back. And then I have all kinds of feels about not doing the writing. And that in itself creates even more pressure. And I agree that, like, being in the flow, what I found is that when I realized I was starting to feel myself again was actually on a plane. I was going to and coming back from a convention in Virginia. And I took the plane time to actually start working on some plotting for overall series arc and getting ideas down. And I realized that I was in the zone while I was doing that. And I was like, oh my God. And so on the plane ride back, I did the same thing. And that was probably the first time in well over a year that I was feeling that. And I think part of it, though, was that I allowed myself that. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't
Yeah.
get distracted. I was on a plane. So I didn't get distracted about, I need to do this for this person, or I need to do that for that person. You know, there's not enough room to even open a computer anymore on a plane unless you've got like a tiny little tablet or whatever. But so, like, I couldn't work on an editorial project or whatever. All I had was what was in front of me. So I allowed myself, and I think that's part of it for me, is that I have to allow myself the freedom to become focused and to get into that flow. And if I'm worried, like thinking about all these other things that are not related to this, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to get in there. So that's the thing I've learned just recently, that I have to actually make space to get into the flow, because if I don't, I won't.
And that's why music plays a big role for me. It keeps music, that background is what I focus on, and then I can just and it just
Ritual's very important too. Like, human
yeah.
beings are creatures of ritual, and like, if it used to be, I would, like, back way before even the first tree fell, I would like start. I have like one of those mister essential oil mister things, and so I would set that. And when I would set that up, I would do that before I started writing every time. I don't know why I got out of the habit of doing that, but I did. So I'm getting back into the habit of doing that again, because what that does is it sets your brain, just like if you listen to classical music just when you're writing, whenever you hear classical music, you're going to be more inclined to be, focus on the writing. And I find that ritual is very, very helpful in that regard.
I think sometimes we need to write things out of us also. So the novel I was working on, so my dad was on hospice 8 months and he passed. So the novel I was working on when all that happened, and I got back to it and I thought, oh, yay, I'm writing again. Okay, well, at the end of that, when I sent it to an editor and I hadn't had any distance from it yet, she sent it back and said, there is way too much death in this. And it's not, it wasn't what I want to put out in the world. It was depressing. But I need to write that out of myself so that I could then get into a flow where that wasn't coming out, where it was actually story time now. So I think give yourself
so you could get back to the shirtless guys and the groping.
yeah. Give yourself permission to write stuff out of yourself if you need to do that. Because that's
sorry,
okay
I could
too.
resist. That was a T-ball. I had to hit that out of the park, Deborah. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just give yourself permission to write things out of yourself if they need to, because that's how you clear it so you can get to the flow again. Yeah.
How about for you, Ben?
While everybody's been talking, I've been thinking about the financial pressure aspect of it,
Yeah.
and how, if I could figure out how to plug in a computer and attend under a bridge, I would probably be homeless, if it meant I got to continue. But on the other side of that, my wife may not appreciate that so much. So
You
Yeah,
think?
yeah, I can deal with a lot,
yeah,
but I love what I do, and I'm trying to keep doing it as long as I can. But sometimes that takes money,
yeah.
and if things don't
It
sell
does.
as well as they should, or that can lead to problems. So there's the pressure there as well of you know making sure my wife gets what she deserves, and I'm not putting off my responsibilities of whatever to follow my own enjoyment and purpose, I guess. But
Mm.
so much for ending on a lighter note, I guess.
All good. All good. No, that's all good. All right. So we'll end on a lighter note anyway, because we've got the epilogue here, everybody. And I've changed it up a little bit this week. Sean, I already got the approval of Sean to do it, so uh, he's not going to be blindsided by this, and you all know what's coming because I told you. But I have a set of 3 names, and what you need to do is you need to take one, and one is going to narrate your work. I don't care if it's a short story book. I don't care what it is they're narrating. You're going to name that person to narrate. The other one is going to write you a review blurb or a nice sentiment for your cover or your back cover, wherever you put those nice little sentiments. And the other one, you're going to take to dinner and pick their brain. All right, and we'll just go down the line. I'm going to go Vanessa, Ben, Courtney, Deborah, and then I'll snake it back the other way. And Deborah, you'll start the second group first. So the first set of 3, if you guys want to get a pen and paper, write this down if you need to. The first set of 3 you're going to prioritize are Samuel L. Jackson, James Earl Jones, and Morgan Freeman.
Wow.
Oh, that's hard. Wait, James Earl Jones and Margaret Morgan Freeman. Oh man.
So whenever you're ready,
Um,
Vanessa.
okay. I would have James Earl Jones narrate my book because hello, James Earl Jones. I would have Samuel Jackson write my blurb because just the sheer number of swear words that would be in it, I just want to know. It just would make me laugh. And then I would love to have dinner with Morgan Freeman because I think he's fucking brilliant.
Nice. All right, Ben.
I agree 100%. Exactly what I would do.
All right,
We'll have a group dinner.
Yeah, sounds good.
Courtney.
I'm gonna go with Morgan Freeman to narrate because the best narrator. I mean, I love
Yes.
James Earl Jones. I'll have dinner with him, and Sam Jackson can write my blurb for the back of the book because again, that's gonna be awesome.
Deborah.
Morgan Freeman to narrate. He's a great narrator. Gosh, it's really hard to decide on the next 2. So James Earl Jones to write the blurb, I guess, and Samuel Jackson for dinner, just because I'm curious as to what he'd have to contribute.
Yes.
That's fair.
See, it's funny because it seems like everybody was like choosing the narrator first, and I was like,
Yeah,
who do
yeah.
I want to spend a dinner
Yeah.
with? That was my first choice, and then the others I distributed. It's so interesting to see how people make these decisions.
All right, Deborah, you're going to start us off with the next 3. Everybody ready to write down? Your next 3 are Meryl Streep, Katharine Hepburn, and Michelle Obama.
Okay.
Oh,
Hmm.
Nothing makes me happier to hear you all grow. That is my favorite thing in the world.
oh,
All right, let's see. So for dinner, definitely Katharine Hepburn, because I'm sure she would be just a delight to have dinner with. Gosh, Meryl Streep to narrate, because of course she's an excellent actress, and then Michelle Obama to write the blurb.
Nice. All right, Courtney.
I gotta have dinner with Michelle because I have so many questions, and she's such an articulate person. There's so many things that I want to speak with her about. Meryl Streep, I guess, for narration, and then Katharine Hepburn for the other one. Yeah.
Ben.
I think Michelle for the blurb because I mean she's such a big name. Putting that on the book, that's
it's true.
money, right?
Love the practical thinking there.
Yeah, like I said, my last comment, I need that money, so we got to go for that. And the other two, I mean, I don't know. I guess Dinner with Meryl Streep and narrated by Catherine, I guess.
All
Mhm.
right.
Those
Yes.
can go either way.
Yeah.
I just
I'm
feel
gonna break.
strongly about the Michelle blurb.
I'm gonna break everything and say that I'll narrate and blur my own damn book, and I'm gonna have dinner with all three of them.
There you go.
I'm just
Fair enough.
breaking all the rules. I'm sorry, Joe.
That's okay. No, that's no problem.
That was too hard.
Yeah, all right. All right. So the last three, Vanessa, you're going to start us off.
Oh,
Your last three are Anthony Bourdain, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and John Malkovich.
oh, hang on. And John Malkovich.
Joe, could you repeat them one more time, please?
Sure. Anthony Bourdain, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and John Malkovich.
I don't know who Philip Seymour Hoffman is.
Oh, he's an actor. He's been in a lot.
Okay.
Of
Okay. I'd probably know him if I saw him, but I just
You
don't
would,
know names.
yeah.
So I'd have him blurb, have Anthony Bourdain narrate, and I would love to have dinner with John Malkovich. Because Being John Malkovich was one of my favorite weird movies. So
All right, Bet.
I just looked up Philip Seymour Hoffman, and yeah, I know that guy. I am going to say,
oh yeah. I do know him.
I'm going to say, I really want to have dinner with Anthony Bourdain. He's probably better used somewhere else, but
Although you'll have a really good dinner.
Yeah.
You'll have
I
a really
will.
good dinner because he'll choose a really good restaurant.
Yes. So Anthony Bourdain for dinner. I'm going to say narrate, I think, by John Malkovich. He has a very interesting kind of voice.
Huh?
Maybe that could be good. And then Philip Seymour Hoffman for the blurb.
Gotcha. Courtney?
Okay. I think Anthony Bourdain would write an interesting blurb. Philip Seymour Hoffman has a great voice for narration. I think he would do a great job, especially like with the different inflections and everything. And I have to have dinner with John Malkovich because I've had a crush on him since I was like a little baby kid. I don't know what it was. The man is sexy, and I would love to have dinner with him. So, wow. I don't care how old he is.
I'm with you. I'm with you, Courtney.
Deborah?
Oh gosh. Okay, so dinner with John Malkovich and Philip Seymour Hoffman for the narration, and then Anthony Bourdain for the blurb.
Nice. Another that would be another expletive tirade there, no doubt. For
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, but Anthony Bourdain on his show No Reservations took Barack Obama out to dinner in Vietnam. It's one of the greatest
I did see
episodes of television I've ever seen. So if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. You can check it out. It's amazing. The conversation they have is just spectacular. It's like the most fascinating thing I've ever been a part of. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. I'm just gonna say that. Mother cussing Tulsa Doom. All right, everybody. Well, we had our fun. Thank you for the wonderful conversation and great discussion as always, everybody. It's been a fantastic episode. Let's have everybody go around and tell everybody where they can find you. Deborah, why don't you start us off, please?
Okay, you can find me at deborahparmley.com. I'm redoing my website and adding a shop. You can find me on the socials. I also write as Deborah Bishop. I write children's and fantasy. You'll see more and more of that, and I'll have a website done for that very soon.
Nice. All right, Courtney?
You can find me over that way at sealcannon.net. I'm a Seal Cannon or Seal Cannon author on pretty much everything. It's CL_Cannon on Instagram, but I'm on everything but Snapchat. I promise I'm trying to do more on TikTok. I probably never will. I just scroll endlessly over there and repost things, but I am going to try to do more over there. And I'm going to be at Authors Rock Roanoke next April, and I've been invited back to Imaginarium Book Festival again next year for their 5th anniversary, so I'm really excited about that.
Woo!
And one of these years, we're getting you to Multiverse. We're getting you
Yes.
one of these years.
Yes.
All right, Ben. Speaking of getting somebody to Multiverse, I worked on Ben pretty hard, Vanessa, little Jordan Con.
Yeah, I always have something planned for Multiverse Weekend, it seems. But you can find me everywhere online as Author Ben Meeks. All my social medias are Author Ben Meeks, and yeah, that's it.
Awesome, Vanessa.
You can find me here. It's probably the easiest way since I have a very difficult to spell first and last name. Sleekbio.com/Vanessa G, and that's Vanessa with an E. You can also find me here on the Go Indie Now network with late night news on Friday night, first Friday of the month with Mr. Compton. And I also do a conversation and a cocktail, which is the second Monday of the month. And we will be doing it this month, but I'm not sure who it's going to be yet. I haven't gotten a response yet, so I'm still waiting.
All right. Well, we'll wait and rub our hands together in excitement because I'm sure it's going to be awesome. As all of you were, thank you so much for joining us today, and really appreciate it. And you are at Go Indie Now. Congratulations, you found us. I really appreciate you doing so by smashing that like button, subscribing, commenting, doing all the wonderful things you do to help us get seen and to heard. We really appreciate all of your efforts, and thank you so much for joining us. Rest in power to Martin Mull, one of my favorites of all time.
I love him.
And that being said, it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you again soon, everybody. Oh, prematurely. That was a premature exit. I want to mention, since we're talking about personal things here, I am going to be joining JD Estrada over on his channel in about 20 minutes from now. We're going to be doing talking about healthy writing habits. Myself, Heidi Angel, and JD are going to be doing that as part of
the link in the chat.
I'll put the link there, and everybody come and hang out with us. But that being said, it is always time to go indie now, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye, everybody.